Hi everyone, welcome back to the River of Truth, Fairies Are Real. I have a fun video for you today that was given to me by several of my fairy friends, and it has to do with their carriers, on how they get around. Each one of them spoke, and if I remember correctly, Jonathan starts out, and I'm just going to read the information coming forward so I don't forget anything. See, I have it all written down here. You could enjoy the beautiful scenery at my daughter's place. Yep. See, that's where I'm at. Sitting down here, probably having a bunch of fairies listen to me read this. So anyways, a carrier for the Fae is like our automobiles, but they run on magnetic energy and they fly. Humans have this technology also. It can be thought of as alien technology, but in the world of the Fae, it is ancient technology that they have always had. The Fae have never never not had carriers. This is how they travel, so they've always had carriers. The carriers were used to escape all the chaos and violence of the past that started in the days of Atlantis. Thousands escaped in carriers because that would have been the only way they could get away fast. To learn more about this history, watch my fairy history video starting with history number 1. I have 3 of them up so far, so if you want to catch up on that history, go ahead and watch them. So each carrier is made of a type of metal that reacts with magnets to the Earth's magnetism. There is no place you can go on Earth that there is not stone or magnetic crystals or some kind of substance that will interact with their carriers. In most places in any country, there is, beneath the ground, not very far down, a great deal of magnetic metals. So their carriers will respond to that. The way it works is they have a shield that is across the magnetic part of the bottom of the carrier. And when you want to get into the carrier to go somewhere, you remove the shield and it goes up. It goes up because it's reacting to the magnetisms in the earth. Now, guiding a carrier and going where you want to go is a different thing. Although the way that happens is also a magnetism type of process with magnets on the back and the bottom of the carrier, more than just one that would lift it. There is a type of airplane that we humans have that works in a similar way, just not as advanced as the carriers. It's called a Harrier airplane. Now, I never heard about this airplane until a Fae told me about it. It's a bit similar in the process, though it is not really magnetic. Jonathan said that if Bonnie and I were to suddenly become Fae and visit them, we would have our own individual carriers that we would be given. It would be a small one for one person, so we could learn to use them. We would not be allowed to use it until we understood the dynamics of this kind of travel. So the Fae have carriers for 1 or 2 people and carriers for 4 or 5 people, depending on how many need to go somewhere all at once, I guess. Now, of course, these can't be seen by us as humans. This is one of the complications of having the veil removed. Not only could we see the Fae working, planting, going here and there, doing what they do, but we would be able to see their carriers in the air as well. They don't fly very high in the air because they do not need to, but it would be a concern if humans could all of a sudden see them. We need to think about what would happen if the veil was lifted and we could see the Fae. In the days of Atlantis, the humans understood how they traveled, and this is something that is mentioned in their studies of Atlantis. The humans had carriers also, and they worked the same way. The Fae don't call them planes or ships, they call them carriers. The humans of Atlantis had their own that worked magnetically, but they also had airplanes. Jonathan said he believes Edgar Casey mentions this in one of his books about the great crystal in the middle of the city. So I'm talking about Atlantis, guys, or Jonathan is here. That crystal would power everything they had. There was radio and airplanes, several things that no one would think they had. They were much more advanced than our current civilization today. What Edgar Casey said is that airplanes could not travel out of line of sight because they had to be in touch with the huge crystal, which was powering them. However, the planes also had magnetic qualities. They operated half on electrical power and half on magnetic power. Interesting, right? I think so. Bonnie has actually photographed some of these carriers, and I wish I had that photograph with me now, but I don't. I should have printed it. You know what I'll do? I will do another video just showing the picture of the carrier. I'm sorry I don't have one with me now. Now Susan decided to join the conversation, and she said they have places that are like shops and warehouses. Almost every fairy village has one somewhere. There are fae who love to work on machines. I guess kind of like us humans, they have mechanics like us that work on the carriers. But there are special fae who love to work on carriers. They build them, they repair them, they do what is needed to keep them nice. Susan said, oh wait, I lost my place. Okay, so I'm saying we have a newcomer to our group who lives over with the Fae by my daughter, which where I'm at right now, who works on carriers. So I'm going to pick his brain a little bit for my next carrier video because I'm sure he can add to this conversation. Susan also mentioned that only adults are able to use the carriers. And when she said this, Susan has a daughter who kind of rolled her eyes. Only those who can handle a big piece of metal flying through the air are allowed to use them. Ramsey joined the conversation and mentions that where he lives, the usual age for using carriers is approximately 17, but this all depends on, I guess, maturity. Lacey said they judge it more by maturity only. They have children who are quite mature and ready to use them by the time they are 14. And then there are some who must wait until they're 20 or 21. Then there are some who are never allowed to pilot a carrier. In the Fae world, children are brought up with a sense of duty and mission. They know they are not here on earth just to play. Play is a great deal of their life when they are children. Age groups usually range from 15 to 18, but that all depends on the person's maturity level. Yeah, I feel like in our world we have some people that should never be behind the wheel, right? Jonathan said that the Fae do have their share of rowdy children and accidents happen because someone thought it was fun to zoom across the sky and they did not realize someone else was coming. So from time to time they have accidents, and sometimes discipline is necessary. Carriers require a much greater degree of control, both physically and mentally, than cars do. What the fairies find strange is that people have their own cars and sometimes they get stolen. In the fairy world, carriers are just lined up, ready for someone to just take one. And when you come back, you put it back where it was. Usually in each neighborhood, each place where people live, you might need to travel, you will see a few always lined up there. If one person needs to be, or if one, sorry, not one person, if one carrier needs to be cleaned or repaired, then it goes to the shop. The concept of each person having to maintain their own vehicle does not exist in the fairy world. They don't deal with money, and everyone is taken care of equally. Isn't that nice? I love that concept. Jonathan also said that the Fae have very large carriers that humans often mistake as UFOs. He said he thinks they are seen now and then, possibly because of tricks of the light. Picture about 100 Fae who are anywhere from 1 to 2 or 3 inches tall, and they are all in a metal vehicle in the sky. As high as the trees is about as high that they ever go. This at times can be mistaken as a UFO. The Fae sometimes find it amusing since there's so much more to the idea of what people are seeing in the sky than they ever realize. People have no idea. No idea. They're so close-minded. Jonathan said that the carriers is how they have always gotten around. The carriers and their cars. Oh no, the carriers are their cars, and that from time to time they do have accidents, just like we have in our cars. Jonathan mentioned that he has come to understand over the years that many humans believe that there is perfectionism in the fairy world. This is not true. There's a idea that Fae are always dressed well and always beautiful in appearance. They are human, small humans, and not always dressed up and perfect. They're just like us, guys. They're just like us. You know, they have families, they have lives, they have children to take care of, they have work to do. So I go on all these fairy groups, and everyone seems to think that they all fly and they're all always dressed up all in these fancy dresses, and they're so much like us. Okay, let me finish reading. Jonathan said, and I quote, "One thing I want everyone in the human world to know is that we, the Fae, are so much like you. We are so much like humans in so many ways. All those little things that happen to us. A good example is that the other day I was getting into a carrier and my left foot did not quite make it and I fell. I caught myself, but you know, that was not the most graceful thing to do. We don't just run and jump and automatically end up in the right place. It's just like humans. There are times that you try to do something and you don't quite get there. It was that it was that same evening that I saw photographs that made me think, they really think we are like angels or something like that." So that was what Jonathan said. He really wants the human world to understand that fairies are very much like us humans. They're just smaller in size, but they live lives a lot like us. Well, except for they don't have money and greed in their world. But they do have to work and take care of the kids and all of that. Now, Susan is talking, and Susan said during this time that she said that one time she burned something on the stove. It was the other day. She burned some beans. She forgot all about it. She wants us to know that they do stuff like this. You know, Susan's got a family, and she's cooks, and she takes care of the kids, and she's got to run after the toddlers and wash dishes and all of that stuff. So that was something they really wanted to to me to mention to the world, that, you know, fairies are like us, and that we have this vision of them that's so much different than what they really are. Now, Joy told a funny story about her experience, and Joy said the first time she ever was able to pilot her own carrier was a nightmare for her because she thought she had gotten a hold of it. She thought she understood all the workings of it. She had done very well during her lessons. The person who teaches them how to use them try to make sure they get the hang of it and know what they are doing. Then after that, they are allowed to pilot their own single carrier, but they watch them to make sure they are doing everything correctly, such as being able to land it properly and all. Well, the first time Joy was allowed to go by herself without anyone watching and guiding, she ran into a tree. When she was telling me the stories, all the other Fae that were around started laughing. Joy said it was funny, and then it wasn't funny. She said it taught her something about being careful. In these carriers, you have control over the direction and the speed, but you do not have control over the amount of magnetism being used, and sometimes you are in an area that is more magnetic than others, and that gives you like a spurt of sudden power. And if you're not aware of where those areas are, it can take you by surprise, and that's exactly what happened to her. Joy said it was a vivid memory in her mind. She came up and was ready to go and was flying around in a circle. Then she just suddenly came across a part where it was too powerful and it got away from her. She believes because she got nervous, she wasn't able to control it, and she ended up crashing right into a tree. Funny part about this is because the carrier has a little point on the end in the front, it's stuck. It's stuck in the tree. Luckily, Joy said she wasn't far from the ground, but it could have been much worse. She said she was okay, but embarrassed. As she told this story, everyone was laughing. And Joy says since that incident, she is very careful now. Trevor joined the conversation, and Trevor said that he finds them to be an irritation and much more prone to accidents than others are saying. Trevor agrees with Jonathan's point about the large carriers being often mistaken for UFOs. Trevor mentioned that this happens quite often. He believes the human word is the human word. The human world is not ready for what the Fae really are. And I agree with that 100%, by the way. Trevor said that he was inside one of the large carriers one time when several humans on the ground who saw them were practically having a fit. Hold on. Something just bit me. Okay. Where was I? They were yelling and pointing, and they all got their cameras out. Trevor said everyone was laughing. Some were scared, but most of them found it hilarious. I guess the light shimmers sometimes, and you could see them. I'm probably surrounded by carriers right now. Okay, let me continue reading. At this point, Trevor said, at this point, I was surprised that the humans were able to see them, and Trevor mentioned that now and then in the light, the carrier will glimmer and shine. Trevor also said he prefers walking and riding his horse. Yes, the Fae have horses and all those things in their world. They're just smaller. Trevor usually uses the carriers only for long distance. such as when he comes to visit the Fae who live on my daughter's property, the property I'm filming from right now. My daughter lives about 25 minutes away by car, so of course a carrier ride would be much easier to get here. Craig, who wanted to join the conversation, said he used to work on carriers. He said that if they plan on going somewhere that is quite some distance, they can go as fast as a bird, like a robin or one of the smaller birds in our world. But that is only if they need to go fast, and they would be much higher off the ground than normal at this speed. Craig also mentioned that the trick to piloting a carrier is that if you are in a dense area where there are many structures, then you must be very skilled at going around them, because you don't have a chance with a carrier. The magnetism will carry you no matter what. You just have to know how to steer it. They can be slowed down, but that's only if they are coming down and they have to shield the magnets on the bottom. So it is very important that if they are going somewhere and there are buildings or trees and structures of any kind, then one must be very skilled if going fast. Normally, the only time they would go really fast is if they go a long ways, if they have a long way to travel. When they do this, they are much higher up. Craig said to look at the birds because that would be the fastest and highest they would go. All of this would depend on the size and weight of the carrier. Craig said that something we might want to look up is a meglift, or maybe it's a megalift. Meglift, he said. It is a train, apparently. He said these objects are the closest to the way a carrier works. It is the same type of physics, although the trains, of course, do not fly, but they are able to go much faster. The carrier's magnetics are working with the magnetism in the Earth's surface. So depending on where you go, the magnetic field can get stronger and weaker, depending on the magnetic pool that's in that particular spot. Hold on, I gotta turn the page here. I guess that depending on where you are, and the magnetic spot in the ground could be strong or weak. So depending on that is depending on how fast they go. They have a positive magnet on the bottom of the carrier, and the negative magnet would be in the earth. The stone in the earth carries the magnetic pull. The type of magnetism in the earth would be the negative. So the way it works is, if you have two magnets and you know they attract one another, if you turn them around, then they repel one another. That's exactly how it works. If they want to come lower or land, then they shield enough of the magnet on the bottom that it will have much less power. So they can bring it down very easily, after some practice, that is. It's simply a matter of covering up the magnet that is reacting to the magnetic force of the earth. And of course, one does not want to cover it all the time, all at once. That wouldn't be good or safe for anybody. So anyways, I thought that was quite interesting. That's how the fairies get around. They have these flying vehicles that work with the magnetics of the earth, and apparently the negative force helps to bring them through the air. And apparently back in the days of Atlantis, everybody got around like that, including human beings. Fascinating. I thought it was really fascinating about the crystal in the middle of the city that powered everything. That was quite fascinating. I'm going to have more of these videos coming forward. I want to get through the history. The next video I'll be working on is a prophecy that I learned about. and I'm probably going to have maybe 3 videos on this prophecy, I'm guessing. But it's going to be a while. I need to work on it. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have a beautiful day. And I'll see you guys next time.